I've always gravitated more towards anti-heroes than traditional heroes. Maybe it's the edgelord in me, but I've always found them more interesting. To my kid eyes, Spawn was the perfect badass. I mean, look at him, he's ripped. He's got green energy, chains, and that wicked cape. Not to mention the most dangerous weapon of all, Crotch Skull. I also thought his story was a lot cooler than someone like Peter Parker's, "Oh, you got bit by a spider, wow." In life, Spawn was Albert Francis Simmons, a lieutenant colonel in the United States Marine Corps Force Recon. He was intelligent, physically strong, and a capable assassin. However, his commander, Jason Wynn, grew tired of Simmons and secretly hired Simmons' partner to kill him while on mission in Botswana. Simmons was murdered and he finds himself in hell, where he makes a deal with the devil, Malbolgia. He is given immense supernatural power but must serve in Malbolgia's army. In exchange, Simmons is allowed to return back to Earth to see his wife Wanda one last time. When Simmons returns to Earth, he finds that 5 years have passed since his death, and his wife has married his best friend Terry, with whom they now have a daughter named Cyan. Furthermore, Spawn learns that his newfound power is finite, and if it runs out, he will be trapped in hell forever. As you can imagine, Spawn isn't too happy with this and refuses to return to hell and serve Malbolgia. Instead, he finds a new purpose in stopping evil. That's the beginning of Spawn's story in a nutshell. Spawn's comics ended up being a big success and were quite popular, and it wasn't long until Spawn found his way into other media as well, including the focus of today's video, Spawn on the Super Nintendo. Todd McFarlane's Spawn the video game. You should have just called it Spawn, but what do I know? I don't know nothing. The first thing you'll notice when the game begins is that it looks and it sounds great. Spawn is well animated, and even though the enemies aren't top-notch, they don't look bad at all. Immediately, the bad guys start running at you endlessly. It's funny that they just keep suiciding over and over. Also, why would you want to fight someone that looks like Spawn? If I were a random thug, I would avoid a demigod-looking fella. The story of the game is told through comic book-style cutscenes in between levels. These cutscenes look really nice. Speaking of the story, a renegade crusader named the Mad One has kidnapped 13 children, including Simmons' stepdaughter, Cyan, and locked their souls in a magical orb. His plan is to use the orb to destroy the devil, Malbolgia, once and for all. That sounds great on the surface, but if this plan succeeds, the souls of all the children and Spawn himself will be lost forever. As far as controls go, Spawn can punch and kick, each with a light and a heavy variant. He can obviously jump and he can block. You can do a lot of different attacks depending on which direction you are facing, if you are running or crouching, and which button you press. In addition to this, Spawn can also do special moves which require energy. True to the comics, your energy is finite and does not replenish. So you want to save it up as much as possible for the latter half of the game where the difficulty ramps up. How the game handles these special moves is my first complaint I have. There's quite a bit of variety in them and they look nice. However, you have to enter a very specific button combination to do them. The manual lists the attacks and how to do them, but if you don't own the manual, like I don't, you might not even know these attacks are in the game. The first time I played this game, I had no clue you could heal yourself. The game doesn't tell you about these attacks anywhere. How would the average player know that you can hold the R button, sweep the control pad counterclockwise, and press Y and A at the same time to teleport? How would you even figure that shit out without the manual? In the event that you lose all of your lives, the game does have an unlimited continue system, so you can keep playing the same level no matter what. There is a password system as well, which lets you choose what level you want to start on. This is good because the game can get pretty difficult like I mentioned previously. Controlling Spawn doesn't feel as good as it should. The controls feel sluggish. Spawn is kind of slow, so I'm always trying to run, which you do by quickly pressing left or right twice. But for whatever reason, this only works selectively. So I'm often trying to sprint past enemies, but just repeatedly getting hit because Spawn is refusing to run. Come on! Fuck! In typical beat-em-up fashion, you just keep walking to the right and beating up bad guys. The first level is in New York, I guess? You can tell because it has a lot of awful graffiti. The first boss you fight is Overt Kill. He's easy enough, and like most enemies, can't stop the forbidden jump kick technique. After Overt Kill, the game changes it up a little bit, and instead of just beating up bad guys, you have a section where you have to wall jump continuously while avoiding being shot. This section is made more difficult than it should be because of the controls being so sluggish. After the wall jumping section, you're introduced to Redeemer and the game's first actual challenging fight. When it starts, the screen is moving to the right with Redeemer on the very right side, throwing mannequins, I guess? It's almost impossible to be close enough to Redeemer to damage him while also still being able to dodge the mannequins. Eventually, Redeemer hits a dead end and the moving stops. Unfortunately for you, this is where Redeemer starts spamming a laser attack. He's invulnerable while doing this attack, and at first I thought the attack was unavoidable. I couldn't friggin' dodge it. It seemed like no matter how many times I tried, I couldn't jump over the laser. I would still get hit. Eventually, I figured out that the first few seconds of his laser don't hurt you, and if you jump right before it expands, you can land safely and get an attack in. Don't let this fool you though, I still died to Redeemer probably 5 times in a row trying to figure this out. Once you get Redeemer to about a third of his health bar, Spawn will knock him out of the window, and you think, great, finally finished with that. But no! Redeemer gets up and is somehow healed. You have to continue the fight outside. Here, Redeemer will still use his laser attack often, but now also throws in other attacks too. The real difficulty with Redeemer comes with timing that laser. Once you get that down, he's not so bad. After putting Redeemer down, this very nicely dressed young lady tells you that you need to find someone with an evil heart in order to open a gateway to hell. Luckily, Spawn knows a guy. He heads to a prison/psych ward to find Billy Kincaid. In the comics, Billy Kincaid is a recurring character who is a child abuser and murderer. After fighting your way through the prison, you have to fight Clown, aka Violator. He's probably the easiest boss yet because he's slow and you can hit him over and over before he has a chance to do anything. After violating the Violator, Spawn puts an end to Kincaid. Meanwhile, we see the Mad One is fighting through the Hounds of Hell to get to Malbolgia. You make your way through weird hell-like landscapes fighting hordes of enemies. Sometimes these battles feel like they go on forever. Just when you think you've killed the last one, more keep coming. Come on. You come to a point where you're in a room that fills up with sand and you have to go through the doorways while not getting trapped in the sand. In the comics, Violator ripped out Spawn's actual beating heart and he was okay, but I guess sand is too much for him. When you arrive at the boss, it is a weird hellish creature that takes up the whole screen. The monster has several faces on its body and these weird boils that you have to hit. What makes it challenging is that the boss moves back and forward, up and down, and you have to keep moving around the level to get to the various parts of the body that you have to hit. But you have to time it right or else you'll get trapped between the monster and the level and get crushed. After dying roughly 1,000 times, I was finally able to beat the Hell Beast. After that, you're in Egypt for some reason. Well, it does get pretty hot over there, I guess. This is where the game really starts to test your patience. In Egypt, the level starts to flip upside down and really messes with your eyes. It's extremely frustrating trying to navigate upside down through an area with booby traps and enemies. Once you get through the upside down, you come to a room where you have to wall jump up a bunch. Seems simple enough, but the platforms you need to jump to are guarded by these flaming gargoyle things. This section really pisses me off. When you get hit by a gargoyle, you fall all the way back down to the bottom, and for whatever reason, they respawn. So when you successfully get past the first one or the second one, they come back. In a game like Mega Man X, where the controls are a little more tight, this wouldn't be so bad, but here in Spawn, it's a nightmare. When you reach the boss, it is a wall abomination that has 2 hands and 2 heads. The trick for this boss is that every few seconds the wall will flip over. There will be one hole in the wall that you have to stand in order not to get crushed when it does this. Combine this with the fact that you have to be hitting those 4 specific areas and then make sure you are in the right spot when the hole is going to be is a pain. After dying a few times, I realized the pattern. The hole always goes left, middle, right, middle, left. Rinse and repeat. Once you know the pattern, it's not that bad. The controls will still cause you to die a few extra times though. After the wall monster, you're in the last level, which is clearly hell, but there are these weird intestine-looking things. I don't know. The game throws some old friends at you, Violator, Redeemer, who is now Dark, and this new bladed armadillo thing. Beat them and find your way to the end to reach the Mad One and Malbolgia. The fight against the Mad One is strange because Malbolgia is in the background shooting lightning at both of you. If you stand in the middle of the screen, you're safe from Malbolgia. However, the Mad One is more than capable of fucking you up. He has several attacks and they all hit hard. You can have Malbolgia hit the Mad One for you to help rack up the damage. Speaking of which, it takes so long for you to see any damage in his health meter. Like, I thought my game was glitched or something. I swear it was 20 hits before I saw it move. Fuck! This fight is ridiculous. Eventually though, with patience, you will get him. I may or may not have found this little trick to beat him. Otherwise, I'd probably still be fighting him. Thank God for shortcuts. After the Mad One, all that's left is to beat Malbolgia. Thankfully, the fight against him is a letdown compared to what we've been through so far. He drops lightning and throws punches. If you stand on his arm, you only have to worry about the lightning. He drops 3 lightning bolts at a time, so just dodge those 3 bolts and then get an attack in. Rinse and repeat. Once Malbolgia is dead, Spawn returns the souls back to the children, and that's pretty much it. That was Spawn for the Super Nintendo. Not a bad game, but the controls really keep it from being anything other than painfully average. Unlike this frosted maple Pop-Tart, which I believe will be delicious.